Okay, I'm Darlene Hanson, and I'm going to be leading the meeting today. But if you can, put in the chat if you're here specifically because you have an AAC assessment question or want. I'm just kind of curious. I know we all pretty much have stories about AAC and assessments, but is there something pressing in your mind that you want to know today? If not, that's okay. Information is always a good thing. Okay, let's see. Are we good, do you think? Okay.
You can definitely start. People will creep in, but that's not an issue.
Okay. So Jacqueline, you have a question? Okay, what do I want to do? If you guys have questions, I'm gonna here, I'll ask Jacqueline, I'm gonna take you off. I'm gonna put you in the unmute here for a second. Just tell me real quick, what is your question? And then I'll tell you if we're gonna answer it. If we're not gonna answer it, I'll put it into the answers, okay? You there, Jacqueline?
Sí, buenas tardes. Yo estoy aquí para hacer una pregunta referente a una queja 4731 que yo envié a DDS y quisiera saber si es correcto que DDS tiene que mandarme un correo electrónico diciéndome que tengo que enviarles más evidencias y si me quiero ir a apelación.
Okay, so I personally don't know the answer to that question. If anybody online here knows the answer to that question, because I think what you're saying is, or maybe Gilda, you know the answer to this question?
Is this regarding an assessment?
I don't think so.
No, es referente, mi 4731, Hilda, fue referente a lo que les compartí la vez pasada que estuvimos, donde les hice saber que yo había estado en emergencias, había solicitado las horas adicionales de asistente personal y que el centro regional me las había dado y después había tomado decisiones de cómo se iban a usar las horas, pero anteriormente el centro regional todo el tiempo estuvo tomando decisiones de cómo usar las horas y no se basaba a las necesidades del cliente, sino ellos simplemente tomaban decisiones de cómo se iban a usar esas horas. Y yo solicité una copia a la agencia para que me hicieran saber qué estaba pasando y lo que ellos me respondieron fue que el centro regional les mandaba a ellos correos electrónicos con una lista negra de personas en donde ellos les decían a estas personas deben de usar las horas así, no todas las horas que tienen aprobadas. Y eso perjudicó el que yo le diera seguimiento a mi salud porque no había el asistente personal para mi hijo. A pesar de que le envié las hojas de emergencias de los doctores, centro regional ignoró todas esas necesidades.
So, Darlene,
Yeah,
can you hear me?
yeah.
I need to go plug in my computer because it's running out of battery. But I just want to say that the 4731 complaint is like when you should use it is when your rights have been abused, withheld, or improperly or unreasonably denied, or the regional center does not follow hearing officer's decision or does not make sure you get the services offered in your IPP. if it doesn't fall within those, then you would file an appeal. But it sounds like it was withheld, and so 4731 would be an accurate complaint. I'm just wondering if did you hear what the question was? Because my audio didn't pick up some of that. Darlene, did you hear that? What
It
the
was
question
that
was?
she had filed, because she was in the emergency room and then was authorized hours, but now they're saying that they are gonna tell her how she can have those hours or not. They were just kind of taking control. So she's been trying to, she wants to know how the complaint process is supposed to go with
Yeah.
DDS.
So I can share
No, la queja yo la hice y la envié a DDS, pero DDS ahorita me está mandando, me envió 2 correos electrónicos, uno donde DDS me está solicitando que me vaya a audiencia y el otro donde me dicen si yo tengo más pruebas de lo que pasé, porque yo recibí retaliación y discrepancia y barreras.
Mhm.
I can put some information in the chat that might be able to help her. It's regarding the 4731 complaint process of DDS. And I'll put it in the chat.
Thanks. Okay, thanks.
Gracias.
Okay, I'm gonna get started with our presentation on AAC, and then if you have a question, put it in the chat. If you come up with an idea, maybe we're gonna answer your questions. That would be great. We've got a lot to share. So I'm gonna get started with that. Jacqueline, we'll get back to you when we get going here, okay? If you wanna write in the chat, you can. All right. I'm Darlene Hansen, and I'm a speech and language pathologist, but I also work at DVU as an advocate trainer, working on self-advocacy and elevator pitches and, you know, sharing your stories and that kind of thing with the team. And so I'm part of the empowerment team, and we're the part of DVU that brings you Communication Access Connect once a month. And with us, I have William. Oh, I'm going to remember to do it this time, William. I'm going to do my look here. I'm wearing a black sweater. I'm an technically a senior citizen, but I have gray short hair, shoulder length hair. I'm wearing red glasses, and I am a white female. And that's my physical description. And I want to introduce you to our team member, William Del Rosario.
Hello, my name is William Del Rosario, and I am a Hispanic Filipino male in my 20s with short black hair, brown eyes, and I wear glasses. I'm a student intern with DVU, and I'm a multimodal communicator who uses augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC, via typing and my iPad. Thank you for making the time to be here.
All right, thanks, William. And then also on our team, we have Michaela Bodrow, and she is in the background here, unless she pops up. But she does, there she is. She does our technology. And if you have any questions technology-wise, put them in the chat and she'll find them and answer them for you. And she'll also be dropping links in there if we need to as we go along. Okay, and then we have our Spanish interpretation team. I didn't even look at who we had. Lorna and Ernest, is it?
Yep, Lorna and Ernest today.
Okay, perfect. And so they'll be translating in the chat for me if need be. Okay, all right. So today we're going to talk about AAC assessments and in California. So we have a slideshow. Michaela's going to bring that up for me. Okay, so navigating AAC services in California. And William, I forgot to put your name on here. I'm so sorry. But William's going to open us up. because you had a great piece that you wrote up about your life in AAC assessments.
Getting an assessment should not feel like a test to prove a service or support is needed. You probably already know that you have a need and are asking for help in identifying what services or supports will help you the most. When you think about your life, environment, and goals, start a list of your met and unmet needs. The thing you need to think about is that even if a need is being met by someone in your circle of support, they may not always be available. For example, when I was younger, my mom invested time in parent training to learn how to support my communication at home. Today, as an adult who is learning how to grow my independence, my mom may not always be available to go with me to school, work, or out in the community. I still need staff who can support me and do what my mom has always done. Thinking about this need, we asked for the help of a speech pathologist and assistive technology specialist to assess how I communicate, the tools I need to be successful, as well as the training my staff will need. When you meet with your teams, it can help to make a schedule of what your week looks like each day and let the professionals help you. The systems that helped me with these assessments were Regional Center and the Department of Rehabilitation. Teaching everyone to look at the big picture and plan for the times when my mom can't be there has been hard work. It is still a work in progress getting staffing, but now that we have identified what is needed, the team can work on meeting those needs.
Thanks, William. And William will be a resource and jumping in periodically when he needs to and feels like he has something he has to say through our slideshow today. All right, let's get started, Michaela. Okay, so we're going to talk about what is AAC, how to get your referral, funding, choosing the person that's going to actually work with your team, with you, what to expect in the assessment process, understanding what the results are, and then what's expected next from you, and how do you build your support team. And then we have some resources and contacts that we can share with you as well. So first slide is going to be about what is AAC and why does it matter. So AAC, as you probably know, but I'll say it to get us started. Oh, I put ACC. Hope I didn't do that on all the slides. AAC is augmentative and alternative communication. All right, and so it refers to any system that allows you to communicate more effectively. Okay, so you may be a limited speaker. Maybe you talk a little bit, but you don't get all your needs met. You're not able to share stories. You're not able to answer questions of other people or engage in social conversations. But yet you can, use some phrases where your family understands what you mean by those. You could use AAC because then it would be an augmentative. That means an additional way to communicate. Alternative would mean that you don't speak, you're a non-speaking person, so you use this as your primary mode of communication. Okay, so it allows for both. It can be low tech or high tech. Sign language is technically an AAC system. People who use written language because they don't speak at all, even if they're writing it or typing it, that's AAC. That's an alternate mode of communication. So it can include, we'll talk about low tech and high tech and mid tech a little bit in a second. But what we're going to do today is talk about all these different pieces and how you get them in your life. All right. So starting with low tech, mid tech, and then high tech. Low tech are things that are just made on pieces of paper. Okay. So if I don't have one here, but I do have a dry erase board, which would be a low tech system. I like dry erase boards personally because they're very versatile. So if I just want to write down for a person to know if they're ready for me to start talking to them, or if they want me to wait, then they're not ready. All I gotta do is I write it down, and can't do this when there's a background, but this is so hard when there's these silly things. But oh, there it is. Okay, there you go. So I just put on a dry erase board. This is low tech. I just did this right now with a piece of a laminate board and a marker. Okay, there's no technology behind it. Mid-tech would be something where it usually, we kind of think of it as it has a battery system to it, okay? And so it might be something that you press a button and it says one thing. Maybe it says, I need some help. Okay, that's mid-tech. It might be the Go, well, it used to be the Go Talk, which when it was in physical form, that's a mid-tech system. They now have it on the iPad, so that kind of makes it more high-tech. But the iPad kind of threw the whole definition thing out the window for us. But mid-tech is supposed to be, it only does simple things, okay? Versus high-tech, where you get those dynamic displays, right? You still have the voice output, you still have the battery, but you can program things, or you can use literacy-based systems, so letters. But the idea is that there's a movement to it, okay? So if I hit the button that says want, up might pop some folders of things I would want. That's called a dynamic display. And it's gonna have speech output, all right? They're more complex. Not necessarily more expensive, but more complex, all right? So but there are really high-tech systems that are very expensive, which would be like an eye gaze system or something for people who just use their eyes and they just look on the screen and then it will say what they're looking at. Okay, that can go all the way into that. We're starting to get into virtual glasses. That's probably gonna be some high-tech system in the future. But it's by definition higher technology, right? So how do these impact your independence and your quality of life? Well, you're here with us at Communication Access Connect because we think communication does impact your life in a great way, right? I can't imagine, and William, you can always chime in here or later, whatever, but whenever you want to. But personally, I can't imagine how people could think they're doing a person-centered plan, for example, if the person doesn't have a means of communication. Okay, so that's impacting their quality of life. I tell the story of a friend of mine who worked at Chapman University, and one of the professors there who was in the law department, but I think he also had he had 3 different degrees. I think one of them was a psych degree as well. Anyways, he was he had an accident where he ended up with a spinal cord injury very high up, and so he didn't have speech anymore. But cognitively, he was fine. And they all knew that. But they were wanting to dismiss him from the hospital, for example, with a basic communication system that just met his basic wants and needs, like, I need to move my body, I need a drink, I need some help, little basic things, right? And so his colleagues from Chapman went to his discharge meeting and said, this is unacceptable. This man writes 10 papers a week. So he needs a system that is going to be in that arena for him. He can't just be saying his basic wants and needs, because it would impact the quality of his life. And so any of us here on this call, we want and have quality of life needs as well. And you need to know that your communication does affect your quality of life. And so you have the right to advocate for it. So you have this right to communication access in California because we have the Lanterman Act, okay? We have ADA. All of these, so far we do anyways, but we have these pieces of documents and these policies that, and you have your IDEA at school as well, that are saying you should have access to communication, all right? So that's why it matters. It's your right. Communication is a basic issue, I think, for everybody. So let's look at the next slide. So let's start your journey with your referral. Let's see. We'll go to the next one. All right. So there's 3 different these are pretty much the referral paths you can go. We didn't have in there, should have put this in there. You could just do it yourself privately. That's always an option. All right. But if you're going to use some kind of funding source, there's Regional Center. And so you can go to Regional Center and you can put within your IPP a request for an AAC evaluation. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Medi-Cal and how that gets involved and the process that happens through. But the reality is that you can ask Regional Center for an assessment. You can, they also could be responsible for funding, but we have to remember that Regional Center is last payee. And so if you are last payee, if someone else can pay for it, then they're not going to, okay? So the regional centers are going to ask you to, I see you, William, in 1 second. The regional centers are going to ask you to go through your insurance, whether it be Medi-Cal or Cal Optima or a private insurance of some sort first. And they're realistic, they are required to do that. And then you can get either a letter that denies that they would be supporting that, or then it gets complicated because sometimes they say, well, we would, but we don't have a service provider for you. So that kind of leaves you in a limbo state. I don't know quite what the answer is for that yet, but except to keep talking about it with them. But they would, and they do need you to get letters of denial if you're going to ask them to pay for things, okay? There's also the Department of Rehab is another resource that's not on this list. If you're in school, you can ask the school district for an AAC assessment. We'll talk about what that's going to look like, but they also are mandated to make sure you have access to communication. It gets a little dicey, and I'm sure someone in here is going to bring it up as to what they determine is how much communication you need access to. That's where we kind of get confused with these guys. But the school district is another funding source. And then, of course, your medical insurance is another funding source. Now, Medi-Cal will pay for assessments and equipment. So if you're a Medi-Cal client, they will fund it. All right. And they'll buy the equipment for you if you need a piece of equipment as well. William wrote in here, and I want to get back to this really quick. You wrote, the way I access communication is life. Everyone deserves the human right. That's right. Everyone's life everyone is the same way. Thanks, William. So what do you have to do as far as the documentation to get this referral? Well, first you have to call a meeting and you have to ask for the communication assessment. But within the assessment, they're going to ask for your medical records. They're going to ask for your developmental history. They're going to ask for your current communication abilities and anything that you've tried in the past. Okay. If you have an IEP, they're going to ask for that. The timeline and expectation is going to vary. So I think regional centers are going to say it's going to take 30 to 90 days for the assessment. I don't know that they actually have, Michelle, you might know this, but I don't know that they actually have a rule on how long they can take to get you this assessment. But the school districts do. The school districts have 60 days to get you this assessment. If you're asking for it in an independent evaluation, an IEE, the timeline that doesn't count for an IEE. But if you ask for an assessment from the school district, it's 60 days. A medical referral doesn't really have any rules about how long it's going to take. It could take 2 weeks. It could take several months. It's going to depend on finding that provider and their availability. Okay, so you're going to get your referral from whichever category you live in and get yourself set up that way. Next slide. Okay, so funding, now you have your assessment. That was your assessment. Now you're going to fund the actual piece of equipment. Regional center can be a funding source, but again, they're last payee. Medi-Cal does pay for actual equipment, durable equipment. So more than likely, if you're a regional center client and you need a piece of equipment that is a high-tech system, it's going to be funded through Medi-Cal or your private insurance, or both. Sometimes the both of them come together, okay? If you don't have any access to any of those things, then that's when regional center gets involved. You're going to have the documentation you need to have if you're doing Medi-Cal, for example, or private insurance. You need to have a doctor prescription that says, I am prescribing this person have an AAC evaluation. The evaluation will get done. And then you're going to have to send it back to the doctor, and there's going to be a prescription for the actual device. So the question is, what if you have Medi-Cal, Medi-Medi coverage as an adult? Is the process different? No. The agency that you're working with to get your assessment done in terms of Medi-Medi, they'll know the process to go through, like who to submit it to first. So you don't have to worry about it. But you'll be using both of them, yes. But don't worry about the background part of it, that the vendors, Tobii, Dynavox, Prinky Romic, they all know how to do all that, okay? So you don't have to worry about it. And the same thing with coordinating multiple funding sources. In terms of purchasing a piece of equipment, the vendors will help you do that. Now, real important here. With all of this I just said, none of these options, except perhaps Regional Center, pay for iPads, okay? Because iPads are not a durable piece of equipment. So all of these, the companies, Tobii, Dynavox, Prinky Romic, all of them, they have submitted to the insurances the opportunity to purchase their equipment and gotten approval for that. Apple doesn't do that because Apple sells Apple equipment to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. They don't probably need to do that, right? So it is not a piece of medical equipment. So it is not fun. It will not be paid for by your insurance. All right. Sometimes you can get Regional Center to purchase it, and then we'll talk about voice options. I have the link for that later, which is a granting project through Department of Rehab where you can get an iPad for free. I don't know, Michaela, if you happen to see at the bottom of my list, I'll have the voice options. You might be able to put it in there, but we'll for sure put it in later. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Choosing your specialists. Okay. So essential qualifications to look for. Now, you're going to have to go to a speech and language pathologist for an assessment, but not all speech and language pathologists know about AAC assessments. Okay. There's no actual certification that a speech pathologist has to have to be an AAC specialist. All right. Now, there are AT specialists, assistive technology specialists, who do have a certificate, but they are not speech and language pathologists necessarily, okay? So if they're not, they can't do the assessment. It has to be a speech and language pathologist. Do you know why there are so few speech pathologists specializing in AAC? Because it's a specialty and it's technology, and I mean, there's probably just as few that do swallowing. Or the speech pathology in general is a huge area. And so if only, you're going to specialize in what you specialize in. Central auditory processing, there's those few. AAC, there's those few. School districts, there's probably more just in school districts in general, but they don't all know everything about working in a school district, as many of you probably have experienced. So it's not necessarily that there's so few, it's just that it's a specialty. And yes, Michaela, it's the voice option one is Easter seals. I think that one should work. If not, we'll fix that later, but try it. Anyways, sorry, talking to Michaela. And then Jane's got a question, do you know why they're, oh, that was the same one, okay. Okay, so qualifications. So look for somebody who knows something about AAC, all right? You're gonna want somebody who knows the equipment that's out there. You know, because there's a variety of kinds of equipment and there's a variety of ways to, if I only do PECs, then you're not, and you go to me for an assessment, then you're not getting a real assessment as to what could you use. You're only getting me talking to you about PECs. I don't know anything about PECs, but if I did, okay? So you gotta really ask the questions like, what's your knowledge of the AAC systems? And then, are you used to doing, like, have you done these comprehensive assessments before? They may be a practitioner who uses the technology in their therapies, but they don't do assessments, okay? When you get to the assessment itself, what you want to bring what you've been using, okay? If it's a PECS book, it's a PECS book. If it's a dry erase board, it's a dry erase board. But bring what you've been using with you so that they can see how it's been organized and what your person's used to. If you haven't been using anything, then there you go, okay? Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, here, I listed up on this slide the questions. I'll just read them really quick, but you can, Michaela put the slides in here and you can find this one there. So what's your experience with AAC? How do you assess the individual's needs? What AA systems do you typically recommend and why? How do you involve the family or the team in the assessment process? And do you provide ongoing support after the assessment? To me, these are all 1 through 4 are logical questions. Number 5 is important question because you're gonna want ongoing support in some way. You don't just want someone to drop off this $1,500 or $4,000 or $10,000 piece of equipment and say, teach yourself how to use it. Okay, so these first 4 questions, they're good ones to ask. Number 5 is the one that you really want to listen to the answer. Okay, let's see, something came in here. Belle is asking, what if the child already has an AA system, but the AAC needs to be replaced because it's broken, it's old and slow? This is a good question. And or device, hopped up, hang on, does not support the AA software. Okay, if you already have a system, then you're gonna go through the same assessment process, but the clinician is gonna write down, you've been using this piece. If you like it, and you like the modern day version of it, you would do a little trial with that, and we'd say we're just replacing it because of these, it's old, it's slow, it can't be fixed. If it's been 5 years, you can replace your device through Medi-Cal, okay? Or any of your insurances actually. But we're gonna write about that. So like I have an assessment out right now with this very story, okay? That he needed the updated version. So we just have to document that we've been trying to fix it, and it's not hard to do that, of course. Or that maybe the new features on the new device are the ones that make a big difference for that person. That can get you get the equipment as well. Okay? That was a good question. Next page. Okay, so what's the process gonna look like? Next page. Okay, what you should expect is you wanna have it in person. Okay, try and do I understand if you can't get someone and you have to do something virtually, there might be people who are really talented at that, but it'll be harder. Okay, so I would say in person. And you should expect to meet with the clinician, the speech pathologist, and trial at least you're supposed to trial 3 pieces of equipment. Okay, in the iPad, it would be 3 different. You'd want to have a different piece of equipment as well, but you'd also want to try different apps. All right. Excuse me. So you should expect for the evaluation to include some trials. And by trials, in that sense, I mean just playing with it and figuring things out with it right there in that appointment. The appointment can go from an hour and a half to 3 hours as far as the appointment goes. It might be in two, you might have to break them up, that'd be fine too, all right? You might include the vendor. If you're looking for an eye gaze system, the vendor would be there as well. Okay, the person that has the eye, that markets and tells you all about how the eye gaze system works, they'll probably be there. That would be a good idea. Then you're going to want to have, especially for the really sophisticated systems, a device trial where you actually get to try it out. Okay, usually that's going to be for 30 days, but sometimes it needs to be longer for whatever reasons, just people's needs. But usually it's going to be for 30 days. And then you're going to have, you want to have your family or your caregivers with you explaining how you communicate right now, and also explaining their understanding of the technology that you're interacting with. Okay, if your mom comes with you and she doesn't know anything about fancy computer systems, and we said, hey, you need an eye gaze system, then probably you're going to need a little more support time to make sure you actually are using it the right way. Not because your mom's not a good person, but because, or your caregiver's not a good person, but because it's going to be, their learning curve is going to be a little bit harder. Okay, can still happen. It just means you need more support time in your report. William says, yes, training and support to teach me how to use the device in all settings was needed, but so is training for the support, people supporting, right? William, we're on the same page. That's right. Oh, here's another voice options. Thank you for that, Michelle and William. So you want your role, the caregiver or your family member, to be upfront with what is theirs. Like I do a lot of literacy-based AAC, and if the communication partners or the family members don't have strong literacy skills themselves, I need to rethink what I'm recommending, right? Because it wouldn't make any sense. How would you be supporting the person? Okay, next slide. So now you get your trials, you get your report, now you get your results. Next slide. Okay. So there's different kinds of report. The reports are written differently. In a school district, the report is going to be written, and it's going to talk about it has to do this, still has to give the trials for sure, but it's going to talk it all from a educational point of view. All right, like here's what he needs for these classes that he's in, these settings that he's in. When you get to a medical, so Medi-Cal or your private insurances or Medicare, those evaluations are talking about it in terms of how do you need to communicate about your medical needs, okay? Because they fund for medical needs. I know that seems silly, but that is what they're funding for. Now, the reality is if you can't communicate, we all have medical needs. And so everyone's going to qualify that way, right? It just logically makes sense. But it has to be written in terms of that you need to be able to talk with your doctor. So you have medications, you have frequent doctor appointments for whatever reasons. You need a piece of equipment to talk to your medical people, all right? So the recommendations are going to be made based on what it looked like when you did your trial. And then how it gets worked out, again, medical needs versus educational needs depends on who's funding the report and the equipment. Okay, so let's see the next one. Go back again, Michaela, sorry. Implementation timeline. The timelines, if you do a trial, let's say you go through Medi-Cal, you get the report, it says, hey, he needs a Tobii Dynavox with the TD snap on it. Okay. Then you need to have a trial, okay? And that's gonna be for 30 days, or if it needs to be for 60 days or whatever, we need to write that prescription accordingly. So the implementation timeline depends somewhat on the trials that you need to have happening. In school districts, to get the equipment could take a long time. I don't know for sure what the reality is right now, but it's in the past, it's always been, if you, as a school district employee, have a request for a piece of equipment, you need to get it in by March of the school year. So if you come in with an AAC assessment, they don't tell you this, but this is what happens. If you come in with an AAC assessment in May, and in the speech, they say, yep, we're getting you an iPad, we're getting you Proloquo to Go on it, we're getting you TD Snap on it, whatever they say, they can't purchase that until July because they're on a freeze from March to July 1st. Okay, so they don't tell you that because I guess it doesn't sound cool to say. It actually would make more sense to tell you that as a family, because then you would know why they haven't got you the device yet. But it's not that they're necessarily being flaky, it's they don't get funding until July. All right, it's shut off in March. I don't know if that's still the rule, but I would ask, if you're thinking, we've had this report a long time ago and we still don't have our piece of equipment, you can ask, when are you going to be able to purchase it? When will your funds become available? That's what they're waiting for usually. Okay, so the timeline can be that way. Training requirements, you're going to want, hang on. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to do everything here at once. Multitasking. Okay, before I do training requirements, I'm going to try and catch up here in the Spanish. Another way to deny is to say this is as far as your child goes. There's no recommendations for therapy. Ask your doctor for another referral, then wait for a new authorization for 3 to 4 weeks, and then wait for availability for the therapy, but you only got authorized for 6 to 8 sections. This is not technically a denial. That is how insurance works, so you don't end up with a denial letter. Yeah, these dang denial letters. Because if they're just not going to do it, it'd be nice if they just said it. That would help you out, right? No recommendation for therapy. I'm not quite sure if I'm understanding why there's no recommendation for therapy. I guess that's what I would need to know, is why is there no, I mean, if your person doesn't communicate, then they need therapy, right? I don't know what I would guess I would ask that question of you. I'll read the chat some more when it comes by. Okay, training requirements. You can get, if you get a piece of equipment, you can get training from the actual vendor. Okay, so Tobii Dynavox, Prinky Romic, any of the Satillo, any of those guys, they will do a training. It's usually a one-time training. They also have online trainings that you can look up your questions. You know, you just Google it and you look it up, and they have a video that'll show you how to enter in new icon or something like that. But a lot of us can't like get started that way. So you want to have support. This is where William and I were talking about. You want to have support coming in through whatever the process was, the IEP or the IPP or the medical insurance, coming in to help you get set up as a base of, okay, now here's my system, I get it. And then you can learn how to fix it and tweak it. But you still have to have it designed. It's not, it doesn't automatically come out ready for William to use. It generically comes out and then he customizes it, okay? So there needs to be some time in your reports for that to happen. And that's why you ask that question in the very beginning of, how do you handle the support needs that I might have if I get equipment? Because you want them to give you that training, those training hours. They might need to train your support staff on how to work the device. They might need to train the support staff on how to support you to be a better communicator. Okay, all of those are hours that you're going to have to write down and have in your reports. All right, so you're going to look for that. Okay, next slide. So then you got your next steps. Let's see what those are. Then you get your device. You set up this training that they authorized. And you're going to set that up with your speech pathologist or with the vendor or whoever on your team is identified as this. Now might be as an AT person at this point. But someone's going to help you set up the device. Then you need to implement the strategies. This is probably going to be your AT and or speech and language pathologist, because if it's technology stuff, it might be the AT person. If it's communication stuff, it'll be the speech and language person, okay? And they're gonna help you learn strategies to communicate. Not everybody who gets a device knows how to use it for communication. It isn't just pressing the buttons. Okay, it's turn taking, it's searching, it's thinking, it's listening, it's getting your eyes and hands to work together, anything like that. So what strategies do you need? You need people to support you to teach people how to do that. Maintenance and updates, if equipment, especially high tech, there's going to be maintenance and updates. You also want a backup plans. Your team needs to figure out the backup plan. What happens when the device has to go in for repairs, if it does? Okay, so these are all things that go well beyond the whole assessment. William says, you can check your school district Board of Education bylaws. Ours had one that said our district could purchase Apple products without a need for request for proposal for a student who was approved for technology because Apple prices are standardized. Okay, very good. So you just have to check on that. Just don't sit around waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Ask questions. Okay, so maintenance and updates. Going back to if it breaks down, you're going to want probably to have a low-tech backup for when it does break down. Because it's not an if it breaks down, it's when it breaks down. Okay, so you don't want to be left without a means of communication. You can oftentimes rent another device while it's being repaired, but that's going to depend on if one's available to be rented and all of that kind of good stuff. And then it has to be set up to be your system again, which isn't hard to do, but it does have to be set up again. So having a low-tech backup is probably a good idea. Okay, next slide. Build your support system. You're going to want to, you got training resources, local support groups, and online communities. And this is where I think I've got, let me see here, hang on 1 second. All kinds of things here. Of course, DVU, training resources are going to be the online thing, opportunities that we all have and use now. But they're also going to be like Facebook groups, Instagram. There's lots of really great Instagram people out there. I'm going to put them in here really quick for you. The ones that I like to follow, and there's more. I just have to stop myself from asking. If you have a really great AAC person on Instagram or Facebook, put it in there. But I like Meaningful Speech. They talk a lot about Gestalt language and AAC. They're really good at Gestalt language, which is another way of looking at how people acquire language. There's Beautiful Speech Life. Beautiful Speech Life. This is an Instagram, okay? And she does a lot of trainings, and she gives a lot of Instagram tips and things like that. There's a website and a Instagram page for Practical AAC. They're probably the best their resource is almost too much. Just go to their website. It's practicalaac.com, and you'll see tons of information in there about getting your AAC stuff set and your needs met. And then there's Rachel in LA area. There's Rachel Maddle, SLP, and she puts out a lot of information and resources too. William says, low tech was good for the playground, pool, etc. I have a letterboard now, but when I was younger, I used a choice board. Some AAC apps like Proliqua to Go have laminated core word boards with the alphabet on the board on the back. Yeah, you can get really creative. You can take a picture of your Proliqua to Go pages, you need pages, and screenshot them and then print it out and laminate it. And now you have a backup system for when things are down. Thanks, William.
Darlene, I put the Practical AAC in the chat. It's actually practicalaac.org.
Yep. Oh, .org. Okay. Thanks. Perfect. All right. So these are some really great resources where you can teach yourself or inform yourself, I should say. Don't feel like you have to teach yourself everything because that's overwhelming, but inform yourself, okay? There's all kinds of forums, like Practical AAC has a forum. You can just Google AAC forums and get involved in that way too. YouTube channels are great. As far as organizations, DVU, if we can help you, we don't do assessments in that, but if we can help you with questions and guide you towards some services or some supports, we're happy to do that. There is your regional center, of course. There's the California Coalition of Children with Disabilities, CCCD. Okay, and this is about protecting the rights of children. Let's see what else. Yeah, cccd.org. So that's another organization. And then I think I gave Michaela a list of some resources that you could, these are not recommendations because I'm recommending them. They're just people that I know and places that I know people go to get assessments. And I think I sent you that information, Michaela. If not, I can do that when we're out of the group, out of this slideshow.
Documenter, is it the one that's SoCal and it has
Very bottom.
very bottom? So those few contacts right there, you want me to put them all in the chat?
Yeah, that would be awesome. And you guys can grab wherever you live, grab who you need. And then I'll do a little promo thing here. Sorry, Michaela, but can you put the next slide up real quick? Okay, yeah, go on to the next one here. Okay, there. So the CAMA conference, looking for the website, try and find, you can probably scan that little code, maybe. If not, it's in the slideshow and you can grab it. So the CAMA conference is going to be May 17th. I believe there's a charge for it, but I'm going to tell you a secret that if you can't afford to go there, and especially if you are a consumer or a family member, just email them because they're the most generous people on the planet. Okay, they would not want you to not go to it because of funding. So it's a virtual company, a virtual service, excuse me, and event. And what they do is they bring together all the vendors and they'll talk about, in different sessions, they'll talk about their equipment, they'll talk about how to use it, they talk about assessments, they talk about funding. It's huge. I mean, the first time I went to this conference, and I've presented it a number of times, but I won't be here for this one. But the first time I went to it, I signed up, you know, and these are my friends, so I signed up and I knew they were good. But I really thought I was going to like multitask while the day was going on because it was a Saturday, and I didn't. I sat there in my chair and listened to every single moment of that conference because it was so good. Okay, so I highly recommend it if you are looking to gather more information about technology and AAC and vendors and anything to do with that. This is a great opportunity for you. Okay. So there's that. And then another disclaimer I should put in, this Kindred is my company. So just letting you know that. Doesn't mean you have to come to me. I'm just saying, I'm not sneaking it into you. The notes are not accurate as far as a notes page go, Michaela. I'd have to redo them because it doesn't say exactly what I was talking about here.
Okay, that's no problem. So I shared the slides already. Some people had asked about the notes, but on top of the slides, usually within about a week, but give or take a few days, the whole meeting, including everything Darlene said, will be up on our YouTube. So you could watch it again to go through and find more resources.
Okay, if there's anything specific, then let me know. But that would be great. Michelle has another tip. Michelle's William's mom and support person. Another tip to help you find providers to interview is to check your school district board minutes. They usually list payment warrants and you can see which professionals in your areas are paying for AAC assessments. That's very clever, Michelle, but that's a good tip. All right, so that concludes the slideshow itself, but let's open it up to conversations about your AAC needs. And Alvar, I know that you are dealing with the things that you're dealing with, but if you have anything you want to put in here, because I know you just went through an assessment and how that went for you and all that kind of stuff, if you want to. And you can.
Alvar said he had to go.
Oh, he did? Okay, darn.
Yep.
Okay, he just went through an assessment to get an eye gaze system for himself. So, cool. All right, any questions? I know that somebody had a question at the beginning, and I don't know if I've answered it. Who was that, Joanna? Jonna? I think it was Jonna. I don't know if she's still on. No questions? William, you want to add anything? Okay, so here is Jonna. Okay. I'd like to know if you have ideas who to contact for AAC eval for SDP. Our regional center is North LA Regional Center. Callahan is not taking new clients. Also advise how to get communication partner typing, spelling, and training covered through SDP, I'm assuming you mean. So in terms of getting an assessment, this whole assessment thing kind of confuses me personally because of SDP. I thought was not an assessment thing, but you can get an assessment. You can get an assessment from whoever the service provider is going to be, really. Yep.
Donna said she would like to clarify, if you don't mind. I muted
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
Hi, Darlene. Can you hear
Hi.
me?
Yes.
So thank you so much. So informative. So you saw my daughter Amelia years and years ago. She's going to be 18 now, and she's phenomenal when it comes to typing using different modalities. She uses a letterboard, but also a keyboard. But we are finally moving away from the traditional model to self-determination. She's also graduating high school with a diploma, so we're done with the school district. So basically we have no funding coming from the school district, and we definitely need to continue with communication support. And then we just had one of the initial meetings with a team when it comes to transitioning. And the supervisor at the regional center wants to do an evaluation for the AAC. And we have one done about 2 years ago from the school district by Cindy Cotier. And then the regional center recommended Callahan, but they are not, they're fully booked. They don't have anyone available. So, and then I asked Katie if she's doing regional center evaluations, but she's not vendored. So I was wondering, it's North LA, who is our regional center. But now I'm also thinking, after listening to you, should I just do an evaluation through our insurance and then use that? So any thoughts?
Are you looking, okay, I know it's regional center saying you need an evaluation. I don't know that I'd go through the insurance because it's going to be more technology based, and then that's not probably what you want.
Well, I need a little bit of both because I'm definitely wanting to transition more. The goal is for Emmy to be independently able to access like social media and texting with friends, and she's very very hung up on the letterboard currently. So we definitely want to include the tech piece as much as possible, but also we have all the equipment. I'm not so much looking for the equipment. It's more
Right, that's what I thought.
like
Right.
the therapy side.
Yes. So out there, you could, Dynamic Therapy Solutions is in Chatsworth.
Okay.
So I would look them up,
Okay.
and they would understand the typing as well.
Okay.
So I would check on them first.
Okay.
If that doesn't work out, then let me know. I mean, we're in Orange County and we can help you, but it's, try and find somebody out there first.
Yes. Okay. I actually emailed them today. So we'll see what they say. And then in general, I just wanted to get your thoughts on, RPM, spelling to communicate. What is like in general? I know every regional center is so different, but is it the same as it is with school districts, that it's kind of like a curse word? We don't want to go there, or do you find that they're more
I
open?
don't, if your daughter's already communicating, I don't even know why you need to talk about it. She just communicates through literacy. She has a literacy-based communication system.
Yes.
And she needs support people to help her do that. It doesn't need to be any special thing. She's already really good at it, it sounds like.
Yeah,
So-
she is phenomenal.
So
Yeah.
you just are, what in SDP, what you're saying is that in order to access the community, she needs trained communication partners.
Okay, awesome. And I love that you shared the medical piece as well, because I'm sure many of the consumers have so many medical needs. We do too. So definitely adding that to the evaluation as well, that Emmy needs to be able to communicate with her doctor. So
Right.
great presentation. Thank you so much. And
Great,
thank you for
thanks.
everything that you do.
Yeah, sure, thanks. Nice to see you again. Okay, Melissa, we'll take Melissa. We can unmute you, Melissa? I just was talking to you a minute ago.
No. When it's an adult, depending on what your goals are, regional center is supposed to be thinking about employment first. How can everybody get employed and what supports do they need? So I would tag that along with what their needs are, communicating with their supervisor, with their coworkers, with.
Right, that's another avenue. If you're going to school, then it's for school. If you're getting a job, it's the your employers. And I mean, communication is everywhere. So you need to have it everywhere. And where you get your funding might be based on how you write it up as a need, right? So like I have a person who's working on her speech through SDP, through her the codes for employment, because she wants to use her speech for her job and her business. So that's how it fell under employment. Okay.
Yeah, I probably know who this is.
Yeah.
So
okay. So that works, right? It's like it's what are you saying? What's your story right now in your life? That could change. It's not gonna be forever. But what is your story right now, and why do you need this communication? It sounds like to me, it sounds like a ridiculous thing to have to justify. But if you have to justify it, well, what does it look like?
Right. Like there in self-determination, there is a code for pre-vocational support. And so when you read the definition of pre-vocational support, it's kind of like sometimes you need to read the definitions and tweak what that. Somebody the other day reached out to me and they live independently right now in their own apartment, but he has a 2-bedroom and his friend is going to move in with him. And the mom was concerned about just the difference of having a roommate versus having your own place. And we looked at the service codes to try to determine where the one talked about social skills and all those kind of things. And I'm like, that's where I would put it right there.
Yeah.
So pre-vocational is a really good service code that I've been using a lot lately for these people that are just finishing school, because at some point they're probably going to get a job.
Sometimes they have to get an education before they get a job, but yes. Yeah. I mean, you just look at your life. That's why the person-centered plan is so important, really, I think. It can really help guide your thinking and stuff. Okay.
But this can be your part-time job at the movie theater. I don't mean a career.
It could be, yeah. It could be that's what you want your career to be. I don't, the person-centered plan is going to help you to identify where am I going and what am I doing right now. So, yeah. Okay, Michaela's got also general advice and thoughts on RP. Thanks, Melissa. On RPM and S2C in relation to SDP. My daughter is almost 18 and very well established in timing. Okay.
That was Johanna.
That was Johanna. Okay. And Kathy's saying that her regional center, or their regional center, had them go to Goodwill and they did the assessment and they covered recommendations for a need for device coaching and device use of care. Perfect. Okay, so that's in, Kathy, just so you know, she's in the Southern California area. So you probably went to Orange County Goodwill, I'm guessing, ATech. Yeah. So that's how you would, this is not an exhaustive list. It was just a list of a few that I pulled up really quick. But yes, if you know places, please share them in here. Anybody else have any questions or concerns or wants? Scenarios they're arguing about? Life is good in communication, I guess. No? All right. Let's see, what else I'm gonna see if I can real quick think, oh good. I'm gonna think of things that you're not asking. Let's see, Shirley. Or Shirls.
Buenas tardes, ¿me escuchan?
Buenas tardes.
Ok. Sí, tengo una pregunta. Yo estoy transicionando a autodeterminación. Mi hijo tiene 5 años y apenas el centro regional me está cubriendo las terapias de speech porque con mi aseguranza no es posible. Con un solo proveedor, hubo un acto discriminatorio que tuve que quejarme. En este caso, ¿debo contemplar en el PCP esta necesidad? Gracias.
Okay, sorry, Ernest, should I include, what was the last word you said? Well, yeah, I mean, as you look at your person-centered plan, your son and you and whoever's on his support team are going to identify his hopes and dreams and all of that, right? And so however communication fits into that, that's where you would bring that up. So for example, if someone said, I need more friends, well, for sure communication fits into that, right? If someone said, I need to go to work, for sure communication is going to happen in that. So you're not necessarily looking at, oh, let's put this tangent of speech and language over here as far as your person-centered plan goes. You're looking at where does it fit in this story that you've created with your person-centered plan. Education, for sure. Again, communication is everywhere. So it's not going to be hard to acknowledge this is where he needs it. Now you may be thinking, oh, he needs to learn to fix his sounds, okay? Well, functionally, that means he needs to be able to be understood by the people at work, by the people at school, by the people in his social groups, okay? So again, it's functionally, but it's how do you get your needs met. The other piece that I think that I'm real up on, I don't know what I want to say, it's a big focus for me, I guess, is that if you're a person and you're doing your person-centered plan, or you're making decisions for yourself, or you're of that age where you want to start being the adult that you've grown up to be, you need to have the communication skills to problem solve, to ask questions, to advocate for yourself, anything that goes in the self-advocacy world, right? And so if you have basic communication, that's perfect, that's great. But now you want to be able, you're an adult, you want to be able to communicate your own personal opinions. You want to be able to communicate that you don't understand something, okay? It's different than basic wants and needs. And so I think that that fits perfectly into SDP personally, because SDP and Regional Center is person-centered planning. It's person-centered. It's meant to be that you are leading the event, the experience, your life, right? And how are you going to do that if all you talk about are basic wants and needs? So I think it fits in that way. Okay, Melissa. And I see you, Kathy. Melissa?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you might want to touch very briefly on courtesy vendorization.
Okay. So there is such a thing as courtesy vendorization, which means that, for example, in my situation, I'm vendored in Orange County because I work in Orange County. But if someone in LA County, East LA Regional Center wants to use me they're gonna have to ask for a courtesy vendorization from Orange County Regional Center. And there's a process that they have to go through for that. And so you can use, like if you were in South Central and you wanted to use dynamic therapy and maybe they're not vendored in South Central, then you would ask for a courtesy vendorization. Okay, it has to start with your regional center and you have to ask them to initiate a request for a courtesy vendorization. Could take a while. I don't know that I couldn't get an answer as to if there's really timeline rules on that, but that's what you need to go through. Kathy.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, hi. Thanks for doing this, Darlene. It is always very, very informative. I may have missed it, but I'm curious because Samuel does have Medi. He no longer is covered under our private insurance, and I'm just curious, how difficult is it to find a provider who takes this coverage, and you have any insight into that?
Well, it is difficult to find providers that take these, takes the Medi-Cal and the Medicare, that also works with this population. Usually what will happen is that you have to call people and just say, do you take my insurance? And this is what I have. Oftentimes when people do take that, they're going to take it for a group, and they're going to say, well, you can be in a group, because in order to fund their staff, they need to have 2 or 3 people at least in the group to create the monetary amount that they need to hire the people to run the group. So that's kind of a tough one. Is Samuel, he's not in SDP?
Just now transitioning.
Okay, well, once you get into it, as long as you put it into your spending plan, as I learned from Melissa ahead of time, you'll be okay. It won't matter, technically. You might have to still talk about it a few times to get it in, to get it accepted, but it can work. And so I'm not sure what Samuel wants to work on, but if he wants to work on getting new technology, you can find people to do assessments and then get you the technology through the Medi plans. It's about getting the ongoing services.
I see.
That's the tough part. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, of course, we're going through this. I think he just finished his PCP, and so we're just, that took a lot, just for him to be able to participate in that fully, very time consuming.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was a process. And so here we are, but yeah, he has definitely self-advocated substantially through the process about, needing his communication to be supported in every way, shape, and form. And so if there's anything that you can think of that might be helpful as far as something that was already discussed, or if there's any language that is used, or anything like that that's already, in play or on the website or anything like that, please point me in the right direction. I would really appreciate it.
Sure. I'm assuming, just because I know you guys, that you're looking more towards trained support persons than you are technology.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's definitely, I would say, get that into your SDP spending plan. You can email me and I can send you the form that I use. Or it's it's not a form I use, it's the letter I wrote up to meet these needs. I don't customize it necessarily. I tweak it, but I don't I had an assessment and this came up. It's just a generic, you need this for community integration, but it'll give you a flavor for where you're going with this.
All right, that would be awesome. I will. I'll email you. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Joanna, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, great. And then we have Blanca, who's saying, I will hand the first calendar I will hand in the first calendar after the first budget meeting. I have a POS in lieu of a program. My question is, if I can leave it as it is and just add the recreation activities on the rest of the available space. Is this an SDP question, Bianca or Blanca? Because I don't want to answer it. Yeah, you probably need to ask. I don't want to answer it the wrong way. So either ask your IF or connect with Christiana. Oh, it's a PA instead of the program. Right, right. So you can connect with Christiana. I don't know if Michaela, if you can put her email in there. Then she would know the answer to this question. But I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, okay? Because, you know, you never get a second chance, it seems, right? Okay, thank you for writing this question and answer time. My questions have been answered and even mentioning research. Okay, great, good. Good, well, that's what I wanted to make sure that we answered all of your questions. Michaela, tell me if I don't know the answer to this question yet, but do we know who's going to be speaking next month already?
Yeah, I have to pull it up too because I'm getting all of them confused.
We're planning way ahead because Michaela's having a baby, and so now we can't keep track of where we are.
Yes. So last month we did an introduction to supported decision making, which was really popular, and there are lots of questions and participation. So we're going to do a more detailed presentation about specifically how to practice supported decision making using AAC.
Yes.
So that'll be next month.
So yes, okay. I wanted to make sure that's what I was remembering. So next month in March, we're going to talk about, so if you're you're doing supported decision making, not self-determination. Always the letters mix up, right? SDM, supported decision making. Or if you are a communicator and you're conserved, but you live a life as a supported decision maker. Either way, okay? I thought, based on the session that we had last month with Vivian, that it would be really good to talk about people who are complex communicators and what that looks like, because I think sometimes people, family members, teachers, regional center people, advocates, whoever we are, right? We start thinking that you have to have the ability to carry on a full-on conversation in order to be in supported decision making. And the whole reason that we do supported decision making is because you create a support team and you enlist a support team. And that support team consists of people who know you and they know how you communicate. And so I was thinking it's worth it to talk about people who don't have a means of sophisticated communication. And how do we do supported decision making? No, supported decision making, sorry, SDM, for that person and those people, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about next month. And I mean, I don't know that we know all the answers, and I know that you guys, especially family members, are going to have a ton of questions and a ton of wonderings, because we talk to you all the time about, well, what about my guy? How do I do it? And even if you have a little person, like you're thinking they're very complex and I don't know how they're going to participate in such a thing, I think we need to talk about what kind of goals we're accepting and what kind of goals we're expecting teachers and educational systems to work on, so that your person can be an effective communicator, or you can understand the limitations and then you can help out and you be the support person, which is what supported decision making is all about. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about next month, and I think it's going to be a good one personally. So we got that coming up. Anything else? If you're in our support, self-advocate speakers bureau, we're going to have a meeting on the 24th, which I think is Monday, if I remember correctly. And I'm pulling out my calendar maybe.
Yeah, so
Monday. And we're moving it to 5:30 because I needed to move it to 5:30. But we want to hear from you. We want to connect with you. So join us if you're in the Self-Advocate Speakers Bureau. And if you need more questions on the Self-Determination Project, stay up on their meetings.